Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Late Night Coffee Talk. Yeah, I mean, this is a recurring thing. Me sliding in right under the wire, and so thank you guys so very much for being here tonight. Right, week in, week out, we carve out this time just for you. So let me begin. For those of you joining us for the first time, this is Late Night Coffee Talk, and I'm Daniel Miller, president of the Texas Nationalist Movement. And this is that time where once a week I take a break from working on making Texas a self-governing independent nation. I step aside, pour myself as tonight, a very large cup of coffee, and I fire up the camera and I take your questions. There's something strangely missing. Let me do this, and here it goes. Here it goes. Watch right there. Oop, there we go. Perfect. All right. So that being said, if you would like to get your question in, and it could be about TEXIT, it could be about the TNM, it could be about Texas politics, self-determination. You guys ask me personal questions sometimes. Whatever it is, here's how you do it. If you're watching us on YouTube, just run over there into the chat, drop your question in. And, if you want to do like some of the people I'm about to recognize, do a super chat, that is very much welcome as well. But be sure to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell while you are there on that video so you can always be notified when we go live and when we post new videos. Additionally, if you're watching on X, all you have to do is go over there and put your question in the chat next to the video. If you're watching on Facebook, just drop it down in the comments on this video. And if you're watching on Rumble, there is still no mechanism for us to get to those things live. Maybe one day they will do it, but that is not this day. And, as always, I will try to get to your questions that are coming in live. But if you don't want to submit them in any of those ways, you have an opportunity. If you'll watch the crawler down here, you will eventually see a thing that says email your questions. You can send them to coffeetalk@thetnm.org. And that's coffeetalk@thetnm.org. And they all come over here, as many of you have done. You guys are getting really good at dropping those questions in early. And I'm here for it. So I'll try to bounce back and forth between emailed questions and chat questions. But before we do that, we've got to, oh yeah, and also wherever you're watching this, share, please do. But before we do that, we got some folks we need to recognize right out of the gate. Ms. Lori Phillips, thank you so much for your $50 super chat. Much appreciated. And thank you for being a YouTube channel member. As you can see, I can't, hang on, I can do this. You see that little thing right there, right between her name? And that means that she is a YouTube channel member, which means she's set up a subscription to essentially help us continue to make great content. So, Lori, thank you so much. And, of course, a big thank you to Eric Riddle. Eric, thank you so much. Right there. It's so awesome. Really do appreciate the support that we are getting, not just in these super chats, but also from our channel members as well. It is greatly appreciated. And, one of the benefits of being a YouTube channel member is you get these drops, you get videos early, right? So, for example, the newest edition of the Texas News podcast dropped, I think, where I interviewed Larkin Jackson, the leader, the president of Free Louisiana. Channel members got access to that a full 2 days early. So thank you to all of you that make that possible. So let's get down to it here. Yeah, okay, we're gonna have some fun ones tonight. Let me do this before I get started. How many of you guys have downloaded the TNM Social app? How many? Right here it is, TNM Social. I'm on it. Part of the reason I was scrolling through the feed right before we went live and like literally missed the queue by 2 or 3 minutes or whatever it was. I don't know. Anyway, long story short, if you have not downloaded the TNM mobile app, you really need to do that. A lot of you are. and it is greatly appreciated. I will say this. So for those of you who don't know, let me just back up a little bit and let's talk about this before I get to some of these questions. Because I've actually had some questions since the announcement went out, but we have had T&M Social for many, many years. And for those of you who don't know what it is or what the purpose of it is, hang on, let me just do this right here so you guys can see, right? So if you don't know what it is or don't know what the purpose of it is, literally for years and years and years, the T&M has been, and it's been proven and shown time and time again, we have been the recipients of big tech censorship. I mean, people used to say that it was a conspiracy theory and we were just making this crap up. I mean, I even heard somebody from a somewhat notorious media outlet essentially bagging on us because of the problems that we had for social media reach, even here on YouTube, right? And so it has been a big issue for us. And so many years ago, we started the process of trying to launch something that was exclusively for us, for T&M and TEXIT supporters, that was really surrounding our mission, that gave our people an opportunity to organize, talk about the things that were important to them, talk about, the TEXIT issue or independence through the lens of their own individual perspective. And, it's not an easy thing to do, because what we were essentially talking about at the time was launching our own private social media network, right? Like our own Facebook or our own Instagram or our own Twitter or X. I mean, that is not a small feat. It's not. And if you want to know, just go talk to the founder of Gab or Parler or any of those other guys, or Trump and Truth Social. That is essentially what those platforms were for. Is they wanted some alternatives to the big tech companies, because the big tech companies engage in censorship. So, we wanted to do something that would help our people connect with one another. Over the years, as we have surveyed T&M supporters and members, they have said time and time again, they really are focused on wanting two things. I mean, they obviously want independence, but what they want from the organization is they want more information, right? They want more access to information. They want deeper information. They want to know more about the TEXIT issue or independence or Texas. I mean, you can take any number of those things that you guys have spoken and you have said time and time again, that's what you want. That's number one. Number two is you wanted to be able to connect with like-minded people that are also in favor of Texas becoming an independent nation. There is a bit of a streak, that kind of cuts through all of us, regardless of our backgrounds, where we came from, how long we've been here. There is a sort of a line that cuts through us all that connects us. And you guys have said time and time again that you want to be able to connect with one another. And, granted, we do that in person, right? We have events. We are forming up counties. There are meetups. There's volunteer events. There's those things. But those last, they happen, and then everybody goes home. And so we needed something that would allow people to communicate with one another in the in-between time, and allow us to be able to communicate with you. And so with big tech censorship effectively making both of those things nearly impossible, we needed to do something internally. We needed to do something for our people. And so that's when T&M Social was born. And it has been a bit of a slog. I mean, from a technical perspective, it is not easy. We don't have, a $10 million, $100 million a year budget to spend on developers and programmers and things like that. We're having to do all of this stuff in-house. And so, we came to a realization some time back that T&M Social in its iteration at that time was not going to cut it. It wasn't. The mobile app was not as useful as it needed to be. The web portal was difficult. So we set about over the last few months figuring out what needed to happen with T&M Social. And as of this last weekend, T&M Social is on its own hardware, its own infrastructure, completely separate from the T&M site. We have cleared out the FAF, which means that any of you that had, maybe you had an account by virtue of the fact you registered support, but you never bothered to log in, that's all gone, right? The people that want to be there. And now people can download the app. They can register their support from the app just by downloading. You can go to, as I put up here a moment ago, tnm.social and register an account and thereby register your support for the TNM. And you can begin to connect with other people that share the same goals and values and vision that you do. So I'm going to encourage every one of you. Look, I did that for the web portal, but let me just throw this up. I talk about it every week, but now is the time. That graphic right there doesn't even look like what the new one looks like, right? But go to, if you want to be able to take TNM with you wherever you go, in this fight for Texas independence and connect with people that care about the same things you care about, then go download that app right now. Go to tnm.me/app and download it right now. I mean, like if you're watching on your computer or doing whatever, you can go to your phone, go to tnm.me/app. You'll have the links there for both iPhone and Android. And, you go pop your information in there and you'll automatically be put in groups with your county, with your House district, with your Senate district. You go put your, fill out your interest. You'll be added to groups that of people that share the same commonalities as you, right? If you're a veteran, you can be put in the veterans group. If you're a podcaster or content creator, if you're in agriculture, if you're a gun enthusiast or whatever it is, you have the opportunity to network with people just like you or similar enough to you to, for it to count on tnm.social. So go do it. Okay. That being said, wow. Let's get down to, yes, that's going to be, let me go ahead and take this one right now because it's literally about about TNM social. This is from Mike. Mike says, where can I find the outreach center with the latest upgrade? The link to outreach from social is missing. Yes. There are some things that are no longer on TNM social because they don't belong there. And that was one of those things. But you will have access to it rather shortly. It's coming and you will get access to it again very shortly. And that is, look, if you want to enter in supporters individually, you still have the ability to do that via the mobile app. But right now, there's a whole rework on that so that it's going to be super useful for you guys. And we understand part of this process has been editing, right? TNM social can be TNM social, but it can't be all things to all people. We're going to have it. It'll be community. There'll be information there. But volunteers and activists are about to get their own portal that they can log into to do volunteer things. So that's coming, Mike. Just be patient with us. This was one of the more difficult rollouts that we've had to do, and we're happy the feet are up underneath it, but you will be having access to that very soon. So thank you for your question. Okay, let's get over here to some questions. See, I got to go back and forth, right? Because I did one via chat. Now I got to do one via email. So this is from Andrea. Andrea says, I heard your answer to my question that I emailed you a week ago for Coffee Talk. I've been thinking about what you said and I want to talk to you about it. I really want to help make TEXIT happen, but I'm so busy. I'm raising my 12-year-old grandson and running my ranch. I don't have time to travel or to canvass the state legislature. Do you have any thoughts on what I can do to help with limited time? That is a phenomenal question, Andrea. And this is, I think your question's really fortuitous because of some things that are happening in the TNM right now. In this vein of being able to provide guidance and resources, and I've actually talked about this. If you guys listen to the tail end of the podcast that just dropped with Larkin Jackson, I actually talk about this a little bit. But I want to just, rather than kind of tell you what's on the horizon, I want to just go in and directly answer your question because it is one that we get a lot. And I will tell you that where you're at is where a lot of folks are in relation to kind of the work that we do in the TNM, right? The TNM is regimented, it's organized, and we have these positions, and there are roles for people to do, and then we have things that we ask people to do en masse, and like you said, like canvassing the legislature, right? Or doing some things like that. There seems to be a sense that all that can be done are the things that we are directly asking for, right? So, hey, we need people to join the legislative team, right? Well, that's true. We need that. Or we need people to help organize their county. That is also true. But there are people that say, look, I can't do that, right? I don't have the bandwidth to do that. Well, here's what I need, Andrea, you and pretty much everyone else to kind of think on. And it's that everyone can do something. You can do one thing each day, one thing, or you can save up those minutes and do it all in a burst, right? So I'll give you a good example. If you did something, let's just take 5 minutes. If all of our people committed to say, okay, look, I'm going to give 5 minutes a day, just 5. That is my budget. I can do no more than 5 minutes a day. Then your natural thing that you could do, right? I mean, let's just think of things that would fall in that 5-minute budget. Number one, you could have a conversation with a person, right? You could have a short dialogue with them about Texas independence and direct them to the TNM, and then let us carry on the conversation from there. You could share an article from the Texian Partisan on on social media, or share it with friends via text or whatever that is. You could write a 5-minute, you could write a note, a letter to the editor in 5 minutes. Doesn't have to be a research paper. They don't require that. And people say, do people still write letters to the editor? All the time. But you understand, I'm just using these as examples. That is not a comprehensive or exhaustive list, but I want you to imagine for a moment if the 632 plus thousand people that have registered support budgeted 5 minutes a day, 5 minutes to do those things, any of those things, take some action, right? Or, just any of those things. I mean, there's tons, and we'll talk more about that later. But taking those personal actions. So, look, let me just handy dandy calculator the thing for you, right? Let's just go here and go clear 632. So we're going to use round numbers times 5 minutes a day. Excuse me. So that's a total of 3.16 million minutes that would be spent on something for the TNM, right? To advance the cause of TEXIT. That's massive. I mean, imagine what that looks like, right? Imagine for a moment what sort of actions could happen, what kind of changes could happen. All of a sudden, let's just take one of those things. Every local newspaper is flooded with just quick letters to the editor. Or all of a sudden now, so many links about TNM and TEXIT are being shared across social media that it trends everywhere. Google, X. In other words, you overwhelm the algorithm and you get over this big tech censorship. So there's always someone here. If you've only got a limited amount of time, and you say, look, let's say you're willing to give more than 5 minutes, but you're busy, but you have, as Liam Neeson said in Taken, you have a particular set of skills. There's probably some way that we could leverage that we could use whatever skills you have to help in whatever time you have available. And so, that goes from, if whatever your profession is, like I know for me, some of you have heard this before, but if you do not, I don't get paid by the TNM. I work to earn money as a technology consultant. That's what I do. Website development, full stack development. I mean, all that sort of thing, right? So I know that here I can leverage technical skills, technology skills to help out the T&M, and I do. Okay, trust and believe I do. Okay, but let's say that your skill is talking to people on the phone or baking, right? I'll use a Brett Rogers example. Let's just say that your skill is baking. Well, find out when the next volunteer event is where you're going to have and go make some food for the people that are volunteering, right? To just help out, to be a part of it. Maybe you love to talk on the phone. Maybe you text so much you got carpal tunnel in your thumbs. I mean, everyone can do something. Pick something. And if you don't know, like I said, that we're good about talking about needing volunteers for very specific actions and campaigns. But if you're generally wanting to volunteer, just generally wanting to help out, and you don't know where you could fit in, contact us. We will put you in touch with somebody, and they'll give you all kinds of ways. And that being said, part of what's coming is and I mentioned it at the tail end of the podcast. As I said, we are going to be producing a regular series that is not Q&A like this, but where we teach people how to do these sorts of things, how, what to do, how to do it, and why it's important. And that's coming. We literally had the first conversation about that last night. But I would expect to see that available to you guys probably before the end of the month. So, the end of August. This is the end of this month, right? So anyway, there's a lot, Andrea, and just reach out. And that goes for anybody else, not just Andrea. If you don't know where you fit and you want to help, you can do that. And look, I'll even say this too. If you don't have the time to exchange, then start a $5 recurring contribution to the organization, because whatever we don't do with volunteers, whatever we can't accomplish with volunteers, then we have to pay to have it done, right? And there's some things we have to just pay for. Nobody's going to volunteer a global server network. I mean, they're just not going to do that, right? Somebody might volunteer a billboard, right? But if you can't start a small contribution and just say, look, this is what I can do, whatever it is, that would be my recommendations. All right, let's get in here to this from Charles. Charles says, Charles Ross says, oh, speaking of Rosses, happy birthday to our Director of Protective Services, Dean Ross. Today is his birthday. And I think at 12:30 this morning, I sent him my traditional birthday text greeting. And if you want to know what that is, then you got to get on that list. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. But anyway, this is a different Ross. This is Charles Ross. He says, we've been hoping, wishing, and praying for Texas independence. What is the realistic likelihood that it will ever happen? Charles, I've had this question on Coffee Talk before, but I'll tell you probably what kind of had Kara flagged this one for me to answer was probably the first part where you're like, we've been hoping, wishing, and praying. Those things are very true. But here's the thing. And I've said this before, and this is going to give me an opportunity to address this again. You can hope, you can wish, you can pray all day long. But if the hoping and the wishing and the praying is not bounded by or overlaid with the work and the action necessary for that thing which you're hoping, wishing, and praying for, that's never going to happen. It's all I can think of is the old joke that of the guy who kept praying all the time that he would win the lottery, and every day he'd say, he'd pray, God, let me win the lottery every day. get on his knees. God, please let me win the lottery every single solitary day. And then finally the guy dies and he goes before the Almighty and he says, God, I pray to you every single day to help me win the lottery, to let me win the lottery. And I never got it. What's the deal? And God looks at him and says, well, you got to buy a ticket, right? I mean, that's the thing. So we can hope, we can wish, we can pray. But if we're not working, to kind of tie into what Andrew was talking about earlier, if we're not doing something, then we're just hoping, wishing, and praying. And, you know, I'm sure that when Houston and the Texian army were engaged in the runaway scrape, you know, trying to find a good spot to, you know, maybe win the battle, a battle against the Mexican army, I'm sure there were probably a lot of people that were hoping and wishing and praying. But what won the day were the people that were marching and then eventually marched across that battlefield and defeated the Mexican army. So that is the reality of it all. Okay. It's got to be bounded. All the hoping, wishing, praying has to be bounded by work. And so when you say, what is the realistic likelihood that it will ever happen? That is not a question that I mean, I can answer that it's an inevitability, right? Because I firmly believe that the numbers are on our side, that it is an inevitability given the trajectory of the United States, that eventually Texas will be a self-governing independent nation. So the realistic likelihood is it's an inevitability. The challenge here is the time frame acceptable to you and to me and to everyone else? And who judges what that timeline is? Who determines how long this is going to take or how short of a time it takes? Well, it's not me that determines that. You see, Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution doesn't say that all political power is inherent in Daniel Miller. It doesn't say that all political power is inherent in the Texas Nationalist Movement. It says that all political power is inherent in the people. The sole determining factor in how long or short this journey to independence is the people. And when more people move into the work mode than in the only hoping, only wishing, and only praying mode, that's when you see the timeline get much, much shorter. But that is something that is totally determined by the people. You know, we have at our hands the ability to determine what this future looks like. If Texas independence is a fixed point in our future, understand that that happens in one of two ways: in a very conscious, deliberate way, or as a byproduct of a catastrophe, right? I mean, that's the bottom line. And so do you want Texas to come out of the Union and onto the world stage as the 8th largest economy in the world, with our infrastructure intact and, you know, people not in poverty and kind of in a good position where a self-governing independent nation would want to be? Or do you want to be like the countries that were formerly part of the Soviet Union, right? Where the way that they came out was the Soviet Union collapsed, right? Its governmental structures couldn't hold. They were having to feed their soldiers dog food and that's when they could get fed, right? So do you want to come out in a position of strength, or do you want to just kind of spin out because the thing that was holding you together fizzled out, and all the things that come with that: potential balkanization, violence, civil war? This is the path that the TNM offers, is something that is an alternative to the chaos and the destruction and the negative. You know, I was talking to Marcus. I may have mentioned this last week, but I'll mention it again. I had a phone conversation with Marcus Ruiz Evans, who is, you know, I can't even remember his title. He's president and spokesman, I think, for TEXIT. And, you know, Marcus and I were talking as really only two leaders of two independence movements in the United States can have a conversation like this. And we were lamenting the fact that things have gotten so bad in the United States with the federal system that suddenly we're the adults in the room. We're the only ones that want to have an adult conversation about our future and not let it go down this road to perdition and then just have independence be just an accidental consequence of a massive fall on the part of the federal government. You know, it's tough being the only adult in the room. So, Charles, realistic likelihood that it will ever happen, it's 100%. It is an inevitability. How quickly it happens and the road that and the difficulties that we have to face to get there, that is solely determined by people like you and me and everybody else watching tonight and everybody else in Texas. We are the sole determining factor in how that's going to turn out. So thank you so much for your question. All right, let me do this, because see if I can find this bad boy right here. Sorry guys, I'm having to run double duty because, little secret, the grandchild is here. And so Kara is bouncing around handling production and corralling a very small child. It's a pretty funny thing to see, a little one running around here. Yes. No, I do not baby talk him. Not at all. All right. So let's get to an email question. That is a research paper with a lot of words and questions. And I don't know if I can distill this down. Let me just try. Okay. So Franklin asks, this is the question. Okay. Is there a fix for the imbalance of convenience of the on-off ramps of the transactional gold system? And then there's a lot of context, and then some other questions. But let me just kind of address this generally, because this requires, what you've said, Franklin, requires much more response. I mean, you're initiating a policy dialogue here. It's not a simple question for a once a week live stream. Okay. But if you guys don't know the context, Franklin's asking about the transactional gold system. Oh, hang on. I almost forgot to do it. You guys know it's coming. Yeah. So Franklin's asking about the bill that was passed that allows people to put deposits of in the Texas Gold Depository, and then you have the ability to then spend it. It basically transactionalizes in the depository. Oh, that's never going to get old for me. I'm just going to tell you right now, it's never going to get old for me. But that's what he's talking about. And so my understanding, and I'll have to dive deeper into this. Maybe we do an article. But I think his question is centered around how you have to put money, you have to actually put gold in the depository to then be able to use the transactional system off of that gold. And it's more than I can get into on this, but I understand your point, right? It is not fully realized. Okay, so transactional gold system means that we have effectively our own metals-based currency here, right? We have the ability to transact in that. Now, that's great. That is the great news. But is it what we would consider a complete product for a self-governing independent nation? Not the optimal, right? It's not an optimal system because it's still tied into all these other things. And you are right to recognize some of the difficulty in the on-ramping and off-ramping on the precious metals. But that being said, it is a currency, and it's as close to fully realized as we're going to see probably this side of being independent. And that is because of the continued membership in the United States federal system. That's just the reality of it. It will, but that being said, it's massive, right? I mean, just the conceptually speaking, that we are going to do it, that we already have the depository, that people can, individuals like you and I can participate in it, that we can then spend this precious metal, conduct business with the normal payment networks utilizing this. It's absolutely, I think people use the word bombshell too much, or earth shattering, but in the context of where we are in our relationship with the federal government, it is a massive game changer. Okay, so that's there's no way I can get into all of this. That would be, this right here is a podcast episode. It really is. Maybe we'll do that. Okay, let's tuck into some more comments over here. Yaddle Zap. Is what's going on in Western Canada right now a serious development / movement? I will say this. So, and because you're saying Western Canada, I'm suspecting that you're including more than Alberta. Okay, so you probably talking about the Western provinces. I will tell you, in all the many years that I have been engaged in the fight for Texas independence, I have always heard rumblings of independence movements in Western Canada. Okay. There was, I'm trying to remember what that thing was called back in the 90s, but there was a movement afoot for the Western provinces to separate from Canada. And they wanted to kind of go, same situation when people here talk about national divorce, right? They're not red states or blue states. They're just states. And states have to make that determination about whether they want to be independent or not. It's kind of a similar situation with the provinces. The provinces have got to make that determination for themselves. But there was a coordinated effort among them. And I don't know that it ever gained a tremendous amount of traction. I mean, there was a lot of noise. We heard about it a good bit. Obviously, it never died down. And I would suggest that the sentiment in Western Canada, Alberta especially, is the same sentiment that drives what's happening here in Texas, what's happening in Louisiana, what's happening in California, what's happening in New Hampshire, what's happening in Nuevo Leon, Mexico, right? I mean, it's that same sort of sentiment. So, but your question is really about whether or not it's a serious development or movement. I would say that what I have seen so far in Alberta, it's serious. And there are some articles on the Texas Partisan where we talk about some of the developments there. But the bottom line is that I would say that in Alberta, it's very serious. I mean, the petition has been submitted. There's obviously some legal wrangling according to that last article. But we're watching Alberta, and really the Alberta Prosperity Project kind of being the tip of the spear on that thing, because when all this shook down, they were the most organized, right? That's just kind of the way that it works. But with the Alberta Prosperity Project and a lot of these guys that were kind of fragmented out there, coalescing into a unified force with Alberta Prosperity Project operating as I guess you could say the operational arm of that entire movement to get that petition done. The fact that Danielle Smith dropped the requirement for the petition signatures that they require, I would say it's very serious. I suspect with much like when things get really hot here in Texas, there is a spillover effect in the states that think like us, that, well, nobody thinks exactly like us, but are sort of aligned in that regard, a little more independent than others. You see a spillover. And because there was already that sentiment in the Western provinces, I think that you would see that would be the first place to really fire it up. But I will tell you, even in the early 2000s, when Dr. Naylor and I used to collaborate a lot, Dr. Naylor being the founder of the Second Vermont Republic, he's now gone. If you guys have not heard me talk about him before, Dr. Naylor was a good friend. He was a professor emeritus of economics at Duke University who left his post to go back to Vermont and advocate for Vermont independence. And that was early 2000s when he and I connected up and became friends. But when at that time in the early 2000s, Dr. Naylor was having fairly extensive conversations, and I think there was some initial organizing that were happening up in the Maritimes, right, in the maritime provinces of Canada. So I think Canada is ripe for these types of movements, very much like the United States is ripe for these types of movements. Kind of like we're seeing this sentiment bubbling over in Mexico. For the longest time, independence and self-determination was something that happened on the other side of the oceans. It was happening in Europe and Asia and Africa, and Australia. It was happening in all of those places, but somehow it was this buffer zone, the other side of the Pacific. It was happening the other side of the Atlantic, but now you're starting to see it seriously wash up on the shores of both North and South America. I can take you on a tour of independence movements, right from the tip top of Canada, all the way down into South America. There are thriving independence movements, and so some of them have a greater degree of seriousness, a greater degree of organization than others. But my feeling has always been, and actually I said this to David Brunig last night. You can take embers and blow on embers and make a fire. You can't make it on just dry wood, right? You can't turn dry wood into a fire just by blowing on it. So there's got to be an ember there, and we're seeing these old school things, these people that have never really given up on the dream of independence. There's still embers in some of those places, and some of those embers have grown into small sparks and fires, and some are much larger fires, right? Western Canada, I think, has the potential. Alberta, absolutely, totally developed, serious. It's happening. They're pushing through with their process. I think there'll be spillover into the rest of the provinces, particularly the Western provinces, because there was already that sentiment there. But I've not seen the level of organization there that you would expect. But it's early for a lot of them, right? Anyway, excuse me. Thank you for that question. All right, let's get back over here to email. Connie, I have already previously commented on the Sharia law situation. So I think that was like maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I talked about that a good bit. So go take a look at that. Man, these are long. Okay. This is from Marine Corps veteran Julio Torres. Thank you, Julio, for sending this in. And this is one that's kind of near and dear to my heart. Can Texas be the first state to protect our veterans from deportations? A lot of these veterans have committed drug crimes, but what people are not taking into consideration, these veterans have struggled with PTSD. These crimes are nonviolent crimes. These veterans have tried to silence the voices of war, and they have taken to alcohol and drug addiction. Can we protect the ones who protected us? They have served the nation, and the nation has turned their back. This needs to be a veteran issue, not an okay. So please protect the veterans. I myself run a home for veterans and non-veterans to help get off drugs, because sometimes the VA does not know how to cope with the aftermath of war. And so, Julio, let me just go ahead and say this. I'm going to preface my answer to you with this. And so I have made no bones about it in the past that one of the reasons that I do what I do in relation to Texas independence, there's certain things that every single day when I wake up, I never forget, right? The things, and I tell this to anybody, look, I can't motivate you. You have to motivate yourself. You got to remind yourself constantly of why Texas independence is important to you, right? And, I wake up every day and I think about the things that blew my butt out of the box, that pushed me across that line in the sand so many years ago. And one of the things that has never left me, my dad served in Korea. And believe it or not, I posted a picture of him on X, and I literally got people hating on the fact that my father served in the Korean conflict, right? I mean, I literally had people hate on me for that. And so, to those people that said the kind of horrible things, I'm going to pray for you. But I just can't imagine how depraved of an individual you got to be to bag on my dead dad. Anyway, long story short, one of the things that motivated me was watching how he was treated by the VA. And I'm not going to go into stories here, but to see how that particular federal agency treated the people that did what they did. And, granted, my dad was not really a combat vet, but he served during that conflict. Not everybody gets to carry a rifle and a gun, a rifle, or drive a tank, or do, fly a plane or whatever. It's just not the way that it works. But nonetheless, the things that they said, it was a promise that was made, and it was a promise that was broken. And to watch him and others, because I can remember going to the VA hospital or going to the VA clinics with him and watching how he and these others were just treated. It to this day, it still bothers me. I mean, it still bothers me. And Julio, I'm just going to tell you, this is a veterans movement simply because so many veterans have chosen to sign up and support the TNM, right? I mean, that's a byproduct of them recognizing that this is not about Texas leaving the United States. This is about the United States leaving them and trashing the Constitution that they swore to protect and defend. And so, that being said, I think Texas very well. I think Texas has always had a special place for veterans, even when the federal government did not. With the Texas Veterans Land Board, and I mean, I could go on and on, but this is important for us. How we treat those that are the most vulnerable among us. It speaks to who we are as a people, and I believe you can judge any civilization, any institution, by how it treats the most vulnerable, right? I mean, we're admonished as individuals to care for widows and orphans, and I'm not saying that is a function of government, but I'm saying that when government assumes that function and they basically treat these people like, they're getting ready to send them off to the glue factory, I think it tells you a lot about their character. I still believe, much like you're doing, Julio, there are probably individuals and organizations and services that could do a far better job of handling the trauma and the challenges that veterans face than the federal government can. I mean, just if you want to understand if you don't have interaction with the VA and are struggling to understand it, look at FEMA or look at the U.S. Postal Service, right? I mean, just look at any federal government agency and just transfer that dysfunction to individuals that swore to defend the Constitution, and then have to sit there every day on the news and watch that same government trash that Constitution, and then get broken promises and treated like cattle. Then maybe you can get an idea. Much like HEB here is called the FEMA of Texas. Let's just be honest. Texas does a better job at emergency response than the federal government ever has or ever will. And I think, fully realized, that independent Texas will do a far better job of caring and treating for veterans without the federal government interference than anyone would ever than the federal government ever has, will, or could. So there we go. So thank you for your question. Oh wow, and thank you to Lori who decided to go ahead and super chat another 20. Thank you for that. I really do appreciate that, Lori. That is greatly appreciated. For any of you who are wondering what's happening there, Lori just decided to send us a super chat to help support our work in getting this information out to the public. So, let's just keep the fight for Texas independence going. Let's increase our numbers. And Julio, I'm looking forward to one day meeting you and shaking your hand. I would love to, and hope you're watching live. Ooh, I'm running short on time. I've been long-winded tonight. All right. So this is from Caleb. Hey, Caleb. Thank you for being active on TNM Social, by the way. It is much appreciated. All right. So let me, how did that thing go away? Hang on. Sorry, guys. I accidentally closed the window. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that happens when you're doing too many things at once. Caleb says, thank you for all the work you do. No, thank you for being a part of the work that we do. We're just here to realize your vision, the vision of everyone watching tonight. Here's the question. If there was one thing you could point to, what is the one thing lacking in the current TNM that, if had, would propel Texas to a vote on TEXIT, which she deserves? That is a great question. Now, there are a lot of different ways to look at this, and so let me just kind of deconstruct, right? So the natural answer would probably be a war chest, money. I mean, that would be the obvious answer. Look, let me just do this before I start getting the hate mail. All you ever do is ask for money. In my work as a technology consultant, I work with campaigns, I work with charities, I work with other advocacy organizations, mission-oriented businesses, right? So that's kind of the wheelhouse that I work in. And I will tell you, every single one of those things that I just mentioned are always short on two things, and that's manpower and money, all of them, because they want to go out and do the mission, they want to get the thing done. And so when I say that, people may say, oh, all you're just asking for is money. Well, yeah, sort of, right? Because billboards cost, TV costs, everything else. But I will tell you, Caleb, as I dig through this and kind of think about your question, I don't think that is the root thing that we lack, that we need. I think rather that is a symptom of what's missing. Okay. And I think that money, the ability to go out there and prosecute a massive campaign does require a war chest, but I think that war chest is a byproduct of what's actually missing. And what's missing, I think, is deep, large scale, deeply committed community of Texas nationalists. I think that's really what it is. I mean, you have too many people that are like, well, I'm Texas first, but I'm America first. Okay, well, that's not how it works. That's, if we're going to achieve a vote on TEXIT, we're going to need people that don't just support independence, but they actively champion it. They educate their communities, and they relentlessly advocate for the Texas independence referendum. So I will say this, is that I think that your question about what's lacking is really tied to the first questions that I answered tonight. Like, what can I do? I think a lot of people maybe have that commitment but aren't sure what to do, right? Or they are in the hope, wish, dream category and not in the work or contribute category, right? And you have to understand that for people like me, for probably people like you, anybody out there watching, we don't do Texas nationalism. We are Texas nationalists at our core. That's who we are. And so all the things that we do spring from that. Okay. So, it's like the old example that I heard so many years ago is if somebody came to you and said, hey, there is a briefcase in a bus station locker in Chicago, and it's got $5 in it. And the first one to go there gets it. Well, nobody's motivated for that, right? $5. I mean, I'm here down here in Southeast Texas. I'm not particularly motivated to go to Chicago to get a briefcase full of $5, right? But well, what if I raised it to 50,000? Well, maybe, but it's pretty difficult. My odds probably not super high being the first one there if other people are scrambling for it. But what if I told you that there was $50 million in that briefcase, in that bus locker? What would you do? What broken glass would you crawl over? What thing would you do? I mean, would you get the fastest car you could? Would you go try to find somebody with a plane? I mean, think about how motivated you would be if there was $50 million or $500 million, right, in some briefcase in a bus locker in Chicago, and the race was on to get it. I mean, what would you be willing to do? What would you be willing to give or to sacrifice just to be able to have a shot at getting that? Well, you got to understand, people like me and like many of you out there, that becomes a motivation. We're motivated by being Texas National. This is our default position. We are Texas. We believe Texas is the nation. We are the nation of Texas. That's who we are. And the nation of Texas deserves independence. And that's worth way more than $50 million in a briefcase in Chicago, in some bus locker in Chicago, right? So, we wake up every day and we're willing to move heaven and earth. I donated yet again to the Alamo Memorial Wreath Fund right today because, we're tracking to try to blow that fundraiser out of the water, get it over with and get it done. Those are the kinds of things that you do. It's that, if you want to know what's missing, Caleb, that is the thing that I think is missing. Really, the core committed folks, we've got those, but we need more of them that really internalize this to do the things that I mentioned just a moment ago. But also, we need to, as an organization, do a lot better at plugging those motivated people into resources, the things I talked about at the very beginning, what you can do, how you can do it, and why you need to do it, right? Because if you are truly committed and motivated, the what and the how are the only important parts, because you have your own why. You don't ever have to be explained why. As long as you know that it's advancing the cause of Texas independence, that's enough. I have said it before, and I'm going to catch grief for this, but I said this on a live stream one time, and I got so much grief over it, but I'm going to say it again. If you told me that I could have Texas independence tomorrow, but all I had to do was eat a big bowl of cat crap, I would look at you and I would say, where's the spoon? How big of a spoon do you have, and where is it at? That's the kind of thing. I endure a weekly humiliation ritual where I let you guys ask me anything you want, right? So that's kind of where it's at. So if I were there, Caleb, I would, if to really just kind of nail down the answer to your question, that's really the thing that's missing, is the commitment out of enough people, and the how, the what, the how, and the why for the rest. That's what's missing. And we do what we can with the resources that we've got. All right. Ooh, it's already almost time. Okay, look at this. Well, first off, let me take this one. Hey, thank you so much for your super chat, Chris. Really, really, really appreciate that. You guys keep this thing rocking, man. You're the reason we're able to produce more content, and more of it's coming. We'll talk about that maybe later. But anyway, Chris, thank you so much. Every single solitary week, you're stepping up to the plate, buddy, and we really do appreciate it. Let's do this. Let me see where we're at. Okay, so to who sent this? Ed. Ed, you asked me the Social Security question, and I answer it almost every week. Not every week, but that being said, the resources are there. Go to TEXITnow.org, and you will find out everything you want to know about TEXIT and the Social Security issue. Okay, let's see. Eric wants to know, where are Spanish materials? That was in the works at some point, some Spanish language materials. I do not know where that's at, but I will check. All right, so that was a quick one. Okay, here we go. Last question coming from chat. This is from Zane. Zane says, not sure if you're taking messages. I am. Look, I'm taking messages right now, live for you. But how can I, a Zoomer, get involved with the organization? Any advice for the youth? Yeah, absolutely. Look, there are, as I talked about at the very beginning of this, and if you're watching this on the replay, you can go back to the beginning in my question with Andrew. Look, everyone can do something, right? Everyone can. Your first step for anyone out there is to register your support, right? That is the key thing. Is just to connect with us, and then we'll give you all kind of different options of what to do. And I know some people say, hey, that sounds like a broken record. Well, that's because the first step is always the first step, right? The first step is always going to be the same, which is connect with the organization, and then we map out the journey from there. And so for everyone, normally I do this at the tail end, but head over to tnm.me/vote. Look, it's kind of covered up by your question, Zane. But look, go to tnm.me/vote, or just go to tnm.me, right? And you can sign up right there. Find any way that you can to get connected to the organization, right? Or go to TNM Social, right? Just go register over there. That any of those points of contact get you connected to the organization. From there, it becomes a choose your own adventure situation, right? What is your level of commitment? Do you want to be a volunteer? Well, there's ways to do that. Do you want to help us with online engagement? Do you want to get connected with volunteers in the field? Do you want to help us organize your local county? Do you want to just spread the word as an individual activist? What is it you want to do? And look, that is, and I'll tell you, that's Zane, it's not Zoomer specific, right? That is the path for every single solitary one of us. Ultimately, the issue of Texas independence, while it may have to approach different generations in different ways, ultimately we're all in this thing together. Whether you're 18 or 80, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you're being a Zoomer, you're actually going to get more benefit out of this than somebody like me who's a Gen Xer or a Boomer, right? So this is the reality of it. Is a lot of what we're doing, the guys in those core cohorts that came before you, is really, we're doing this for guys like you, right? For your generation, you will be able to experience more of this independence than we will. As I say often, to paraphrase Warren Zevon, I am closer to my last sandwich than I am my first. And my goal is to ensure that we get to Texas independence before the gravedigger pats me in the face with a shovel. So that's what I would recommend, Zane. Just get connected to the organization any way that you can. Okay, guys, look at this. So thanks for the question, Zane. Look at this. Right at the almost the finish line, right? Lori Brunig steps up with a $49.99 super chat. Thank you so much for that, Lori. It is greatly appreciated. This is going to be, I'm telling you, we got so much cool content that's getting ready to come your way. And I know we've been promising it, but it's short on manpower and money, right? Like every organization or campaign out there. So that what you guys have done, the Lorries and Chris and Eric and you guys, folks that may have gone over to the donation page and donated to those campaigns, you have helped. And this content, you're about to get things that are super specific for y'all. I mean, and it's going to address a lot of the things that we talked about tonight. But the challenges and really the question is, will you participate in those, folks? Will you participate as we produce the content and create opportunities for you to meet in person or virtually or like TNM Social online and connect up? Will you take advantage of what we have to offer? Because ultimately, all of these things are to help you realize your vision, right? We're one of the key fundamentals of the Texas Nationalist Movement is we are an organization that is comprised of Texas nationalists. And so consequently, what that means is that if you're a Texas nationalist and we provide these things and we do these things to help realize your vision, then take advantage of them. They're there for you, but also do what you can to support them. Sometimes participation may be the only support that's necessary just to get the ball across the goal line. So participate. Your participation is much appreciated. Okay, friends. Well, guess what? That is going to be a wrap. Naturally, overtime. This is what happens. But again, a big thank you to our channel members out there. Thank you so much for helping keep our activities moving on YouTube. If you don't know how to do that, become a YouTube channel member. Head over to our YouTube channel, probably where you're watching this on YouTube. If you are, go to our channel. You'll see a button there that says join, and you can become a channel member there. Additionally, do want to remind everyone, if I did not drive this home enough tonight, go to tnm.social. If you don't have an account, register one. Look, we set this thing up where you can literally register with your other and log in with your other social media accounts. If you already have a Facebook account, an X account, I think we got Apple and Google both. So any of those four, you can actually register an account and log in with those accounts. I mean, it's super, super fast. So do that. And while you're at it, go download the TNM Social app, right? Head over to tnm.me/app and you'll have the links for both iPhone and Android. And if this did not come across earlier, please pledge your support. Head over to tnm.me/vote. Register your support today. We need you. If you want to get connected with what we're doing, you can do it in any of those ways, but if none of those ways trip your light fantastic or whatever that stupid phrase is, boom shakalaka, you can go right there, tnm.me/vote. And and look at that. I mean, just like that, Eric Riddle not only super chatted tonight, but he just right then went over and became a channel member on the YouTube channel. So thank you, Eric. Welcome. Your name will be on the slide next week. So thank you so much for that. Okay, friends, I do believe that is a wrap. So I'd like to thank you guys so much for joining us tonight for Late Night Coffee Talk. I picked the big cup tonight, and it's a good thing I did because I have a lot of work to do. In between, if you're catching us on the replay or you thought of something after we go dark tonight, you can always email those questions to coffeetalk@vtnm.org, and they'll be prepped and ready to go for next week. So until then, I'm going to leave you with the words I leave you with every time we're together. They're not my words. They're the words of Sam Houston when he said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. I believe that time is now, and the question is, will you stand with her? Good night, everyone.